Hey guys, Kevin here. Today we'll be reacting to Apple wants to recreate its iPhone series supply chain outside of China. You know things are tricky when people start moving around. China has been on top for a long time. It's about give fun. Let's get into it.
Manufacturing campus in Zhengzhou, China, with a population of as much as 300,000, the size of Pittsburgh. The facility at one point made 85% of the Pro lineup of iPhones, but now that's starting to change. Other Foxconn factories like this one in southern India have been tapped to build iPhones, and facilities like this one in Vietnam are expanding to produce other products that were once mainly made in China. That's because protests at the Zhengzhou factory, a wave of infections, and 3 years of COVID woes in China have helped propel Apple to look for alternatives. But supply chain analysts say China's finely tuned production system won't be easy to replace. So here's why Apple and its suppliers face an uphill battle when it comes to building new iPhone cities in India and Vietnam. Over the past 2 decades, Apple has looked primarily to Foxconn, the world's biggest electronics manufacturing company, to turn its product designs into reality. Since it first began making iPhones in 2010, Foxconn's facility in Zhengzhou has stood out for its efficient ecosystem. It excels at collecting the hundreds of required parts from manufacturers and assembling the functioning devices to be shipped out to customers. Supply chain analysts say China has been the best at this because many of these parts and the metals needed to make them are refined and built within the country. But assembly plants in India and Vietnam won't have such easy access to these components. According to its latest list of suppliers, Apple works with more than 180 companies, and about 150 have operations in China.
Man, 150 companies in this tiny thing. It's interesting, how business works and just what has to happen, especially from a strategic point of view. Because you don't really want to be overly reliant on China, because when things go wrong, and then it's like things go terribly wrong. We've seen that happen in the past 3 years, but then also there's a reason that you were overly relying on China. So it's damn, man.
Compare that to Vietnam, where only 26 Apple suppliers have operations, while India only has 11. That means assemblers in these countries would have to import more of the parts needed to make Apple products, a process with plenty of paperwork and delays. Once the parts arrive, factories need a lot of...
And China's just gonna sabotage that. They won't allow it because that affects their economy. So they'll be like, yo, man, we'll put embargoes and all that, those international monetary policies. Not monetary, but international policies. It's gonna be interesting to see because these things will take effect in the next 7 years, and then you get to see what actually the plan is. Unless they plan on switching the whole system and just developing a different way of creating these iPhones.
Workers to assemble the many components that go into Apple products. To maintain having hundreds of thousands of workers in iPhone City in Zhengzhou, Foxconn provides on-site accommodation. That has allowed workers from all around the country to live and work at the factory. But India's Foxconn factory, where Apple is now building new iPhones from the beginning of their production cycle, is much smaller with fewer workers. So the company buses them in from nearby hostels and villages that are mostly within a 50-mile radius. Analysts say to meet this increasing demand, Foxconn's factory in India may eventually need the type of on-campus accommodation seen in Zhengzhou.
But that's the crazy part, China, man, is just built for this. And India as well, these people do have a lot of human labor to be able to do this. It's just the cost. It's sad coming from, I come from a third world country that, these are not ideal conditions for these people, but still, it's always an amazing thing to be able to create an income to take care of your family. But damn, man.
Apple and Foxconn did not respond to requests for comment about the challenges facing facilities in India and Vietnam, such as import delays and workforce shortages. In Apple's April earnings call...
How do you have workforce shortages in India? No offense to my Indian friends, but isn't there 1 billion people out there? But then I also guess it has to do with skills and stuff like that.
CEO Tim Cook said the company is continuing to optimize the production process.
Our supply chain is truly global, and so the products are made everywhere.
Even though Apple is starting to look elsewhere, analysts say it's unlikely to completely leave China's efficient system anytime soon. Production started to recover after Foxconn lifted COVID-19 restrictions at its Zhengzhou plant in early December, and wait times for high-end iPhone models have improved. Still, people involved in Apple's supply chain say the company may look to other suppliers within China to reduce its reliance on Foxconn.
Yeah.
That may mean, in the future, a wider range of companies will be building more of our iPhones and other Apple products.
Yeah. Man, like I'm a fan of Apple. Like obviously it's all I use, but the main thing is when you look at the supply chain, one thing you have to respect is this guy called Tim Cook, because apparently that's what he's really good at just creating that an efficient supply system that's able to produce a lot of things. I've never truly understand, and I'm someone who's a marketer. Like I'm a professional marketer. I've never understood why people keep buying these things every time they come out. It's like it has the same functionality, it doesn't change, it still means the same utility. So what's the point of keeping on buying? What's the point of, like, I know this year they'll probably bring out the iPhone 15. Like, what's the difference between an iPhone 12 and iPhone 15 from a functionality base? But then I know in marketing they will say, listen, Kevin, you're being stupid, because people do not buy based on functionality. People buy products for different reasons. You know, people want that status, people want all those stuff, but those things are not really like at the base. That's just consumerism. Like for me, like it's a lot of it. And kudos to Apple for being able to do that and getting people to purchase a lot of these phones for an extremely high amount of money when it costs them very cheap to develop, because in these countries that they're in, the minimum wage is not really that high. I don't even think they have minimum wages, you know. So it's crazy. From a strategic perspective, you're like, damn, man, I respect your business. But from a moral perspective, it's like, damn, man, like, like for real, like y'all gonna do that? Like $1,000 really for? It's not even 1,000. It's like 1,500 for a phone that costs you almost $150 to make. Like, what are we doing, man? But anyway, shout out Apple. Shout out all my Apple users. What are you guys' thoughts on this strategic move they're making? Do you think they'll leave China in total, or do you think they'll stay? Like, I think they'll have to stay in China, because I feel like China is just well positioned for this. But the one thing we say in business is never rest on your laurels. Even if you're China, man, you gotta keep on upgrading and doing things different. Because like when COVID came, it really messed up a lot of things, and it opened a lot of people's eyes to being like, oh, I don't really need you as my main supplier. I can also move. But I feel like it's going to be interesting to see where they go from here. Like, that's just me. With that said, hope you guys are having a good time. I'll see you in the next one.